I feel like everyone agrees that Valve is one of the best video game companies. They have made so many games that people remember and love, at least before they abandoned all of them. Like Portal, Team Fortress, Left 4 Dead, Counter-Strike, and especially Half-Life. I have played every Half-Life game, from main games to tech demos to expansions, and way more. And I'm gonna put them all on a tier list because, I mean, why not? So without wasting any more time, let's start with Half-Life 1 was such an innovative game. This was the first FPS to use environmental storytelling and have, like, a more complex storyline in general. The gameplay was such an evolution that you can clearly see the difference between games before and after its release. But the million-dollar question, after 26 years, does it still hold up? I mean, in Half-Life, you play as a scientist named Morgan Freeman, and he is so shit at his job that he accidentally summons an alien race from the planet Zen. So then you try to escape the lab while fighting the aliens off, and eventually try to stop them from invading Earth. Half-Life is all about freedom of gameplay, where you can fight enemies in the way you desire. And most of the time the combat is very chaotic and I like it. Though this game hasn't really aged that well in certain spots. Like, it has a lot of rough spots and jank where you'll lose half your HP from literal fall damage. And the enemies being very difficult compared to Half-Life 2. But I'm willing to forgive its rough spots because this is older than Shrek. The cool thing about Half-Life is that there is zero cutscenes in any of the games. You can just walk away if a character is giving you dialogue, and in the first game, you can literally just kill the scientist because, I mean, why not? This definitely isn't the best game on this list because of the jank, because, you know, it wants me to kill myself. But besides that, it's a great and charming game. Bravo, Valve. Half-Life Uplink was a demo of the original Half-Life. Nothing really much to say about it other besides that. I mean, like, yeah. After Half-Life's release, Gearbox made a trilogy of expansions for the game, and the first one was Opposing Force. In this expansion, you don't play as Gordon Freeman, instead you play as a generic military guy, and you're basically supposed to kill all the scientists in the building, but then everyone in your squad dies before that, so then you team up with the scientists. This expansion, compared to the others, like I'm gonna talk about, is the chunkiest with new stuff. It has like a bunch of new weapons, and I just love Opposing Force. It does basically everything an expansion needs to. It just adds on to the main game without ruining it. Alright, the next expansion Gearbox made was Blue Shift, and you don't play as Gordon Freeman, you play as Barney, a security guard in Black Mesa, and you basically try to escape Black Mesa through a teleporter. There's not much to say about it as in Opposing Force. The thing different about this expansion compared to the others is not having an HEV suit. Instead, you just have like normal armor. It's alright, but you know, definitely not as good as Opposing Force. The final expansion that Gearbox made was Half-Life Decay, which isn't actually on Steam because it was exclusive to the PS2, but thankfully there is a mod to play it on the computer, thankfully. In Decay, you don't play as Gordon Freeman, you don't play as Gina Cross, you actually play as a Vortigaunt. Half-Life Source is a remastered version of Half-Life where Valve just put Half-Life into the Source engine, and it works like shit. I got a ton of crashes during my playthrough of this, so what's so remastered about this? There's better water. Just go play the original at this point, or you can subscribe to me, or you can play. Half-Life 2. This is arguably the best Valve game, and there are a lot of good choices. In fact, like, I'd be really interested to hear like what your favorite Valve game is in the comments. Anyways, this time you actually play as Gordon Freeman, and there's a new race of aliens called Combine that came down from the light and did some 1984 shit, and now the biggest new fashion trend is blue! And then you fight the Combine. This game continues with Half-Life's things with environmental storytelling, The world is way more interesting than in 1 because it takes place outside of Black Mesa and Zen, and still no cutscenes, so that's great. Now let's talk about the gameplay. Some people know this game for being innovative. Some people know this game for being the origin of the skibbity toilet, but that's besides the point. The game plays way more smoothly than you would expect, and the graphics aren't that bad. Everything about this game has just aged so well, and for comparison, Elder Scrolls 4 released 2 years after this.
That really pisses me off.
There's not a lot of new weapons for Half-Life 2 though, but there's one really good weapon, the gravity gun. The gravity gun is amazing. Messing around with the physics is just glorious in Half-Life 2. And it also creates more creativity with how you approach enemies, instead of just shooting or exploding the enemies in Half-Life 1. And the gameplay peaks with Ravenholm, a ghost town overrun with zombies, and there's so many ways you can approach the enemies. You can use the traps in the town, you can use the gravity gun, you can use your submachine gun, and honestly this game is just a masterpiece. Every level is just so fine-tuned, and also leads the way other games to be made. And this is honestly Valve at its peak. There's also some vehicle sections where you can drive around, some boss fights, and honestly the physics and no cutscenes just make this game so immersive and fun to play around with, like your own box. And if you haven't played this game yet, what are you doing? Wake up, Mr. Freeman. Alright, next is Half-Life Deathmatch. This one is really weird because, it's kind of broken. Like, people are bouncing off of walls, they're going at the speed of sound. Most of the time you don't even know what you die to, but I mean, no one really cares about Deathmatch, so I'm just gonna put in seats here. Half-Life Lost Coast is a cancelled episode for Half-Life. All you're really doing in it is go up a cliff, and then fight the Combine, and then fight an airplane, and yeah, that's about it. The big thing about Lost Coast is the developer commentary.
Exaggerated swagger of a black teen.
Basically, it's the devs talking about how they made the game. It's pretty interesting, but like Lost Coast is like 15 minutes long, so yeah. Half-Life 2 Episode 1 was a short continuation of Half-Life 2. I mean, not much happens, like you get data from the Citadel, and then you escape the city before it explodes, and that's about it. It's basically a Half-Life 2 expansion. It doesn't introduce much, but I liked it. And also, unlike Half-Life 2, Alex Vance, a character that was introduced in Half-Life 2, accompanies you for the whole episode, and I think for 2006 she has pretty good AI. Okay, now for Episode 2. I really liked Episode 2. Instead of being, we escape city, then explosion, it's a more interesting story compared to Episode 1. So anyways, you have to go to the mountains to go back to Eli Vance to get the data from the Citadel with Alex. Overall, this episode is definitely better than Episode 1, but like Episode 2, it just feels like a neat expansion to Half-Life 2. And there was also this stupid-ass cliffhanger that didn't get resolved for 13 years. And also, looking at the Episode 3 footage, I was just like, why? It would be so cool. Also, this episode is where the gnome achievement is from. If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically there's an achievement where you get a gnome from the beginning of the episode, and you have to take it all the way to the end of the game. So that's pretty cool. I know this is fan-made, but I said every Half-Life game, and plus this came out before Half-Life Alyx. So, hunt down the freeman. This is fucking garbage. The voice acting and cutscenes are fucking goofy and stupid.
Welcome to Albuquerque.
You fucked up my face.
The audio is all over the fucking place. But despite that, the cutscenes were the best part, because I didn't have to play the game when there was one. Also, having cutscenes in a Half-Life fan game kinda goes against Half-Life. You know, it's not supposed to have cutscenes. Now let's talk the game. The movement is broken. You know how in Elder Scrolls you hump up like a mountain to get higher on it? Imagine that clunkiness, but extended to the whole movement system. Not even the simplest movement options work, like crouching. Now for the graphics and visuals. The cutscenes are acceptable visually, but at one point I'm pretty sure someone had like cheese for hair.
Alright, Joe. Let's save your friends from spiders with vaginas.
In the gameplay, the environments look like an empty fucking wasteland. They don't look interesting to explore or nice to look at. It looks like a Pokemon Sword map. Now for the combat. Instead of saying what's gone wrong with it, I'm just gonna say one game this year that had better combat is Star Wars Outlaws on a good day. And for the first half of the game, you had no idea where you're supposed to go. There's a ton of fucking invisible barriers. This is worse than Half-Life Source. Also, the story is ripped straight from Metal Gear Solid 5. So I'm gonna give it an 11 out of 10, minus every time I said Half-Life in this video.
And now,
Mitch, please. I can explain.
you have my permission to die.
After Episode 2, the Half-Life fans were left in the dark. They were gonna make Episode 3, but everyone knows the end of that story. And they also cancelled Half-Life 3 like 12 times. And after 13 years, they finally made a VR game. Even though it was on an expensive VR headset, Valve did not mess with this game. You know how physics was like a big thing in Half-Life 2? Well, Half-Life Alyx puts physics and interactivity to the next level. Since this is a VR game, if you can think you can mess around with something, you could probably do it. And it is really, really good. Anyways, basically you play as Alyx from Half-Life. Well, thanks Captain Obvious. But seriously, I have never seen a game like Half-Life Alyx use physics so well before. It's on a whole nother level. Also, instead of having a gravity gun, you have gravity gloves that work so smoothly. With a simple hand movement, things flick towards you and it feels great. The combat also feels amazing, but compared to Half-Life 2, shootouts are more spread out. That gives you more time to loot and mess around with the physics, so overall, pretty good. And now for the last game on this list, Black Mesa. It's another fan game, but it's a full-on remake of Half-Life 1, and it is insanely good for a fan game. If you told me this was an official Valve game and made by them, I would believe you, because it genuinely looks insane for a game that was made by fans. It looks like an actual science lab instead of a shitty Roblox game. Like, here's the train ride from the OG Half-Life, and this is it in Black Mesa. This is, in my opinion, one of the best remakes ever. It removes all the jank that I hated from Half-Life 1 and makes it look pretty. And if you aren't convinced this is amazing, there's an ending where it rains fucking pizzas, and you can give someone toilet paper. And that's every Half-Life game. It's not technically every Half-Life game, like Deathmatch Classic and Deathmatch Source aren't here, and like more fan games like Anotropy Zero. But if I played every Half-Life game, including all the fan games, Half-Life 3 would probably be released by the time I finished. And the future of the Half-Life franchise is looking pretty uncertain right now. There's some files talking about an HLX, which could be Half-Life 3, but let's be honest, that's putting our expectations pretty goddamn high. I also played Half-Life 2 with mods, and it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Subscribe now.
It starts with
I don't know why, it doesn't even matter how hard you try.